This is Diesel We the People News one more time. Alright. I don't say this very often, but this is a news update. And since you cannot get this from fake news, and you can only get it through the UT, sometimes when they don't cancel you, this is Legally Armed America. Alright. And I don't watch his videos as much as I should, because he's got a lot of great content. Go subscribe to his channel. Alright, you're going to learn a lot more from him than most places in general. Okay, he tries to stay on top of things pretty often. Alright, so this is news. This video is without prejudice and or without recourse. Okay, I'm not waiving none of my rights, none whatsoever. Alrighty? I never look straight forward. I always look around me to be able to protect myself by any means necessary, including this video here, y'all. Alright? We always got to try to find the rattlesnake in the grass before it bites you. Right? And sometimes if it does bite you, we need to find out where that rattlesnake is and make sure it is a rattlesnake. That way you can properly get treated. Okay? Anything I say or do is just my opinion. Why? Because I cannot give legal advice. I'm not an attorney. That's why. Let's check this video out, y'all.
Still sitting back scratching your heads wondering how so many of these openly supposed pro-Second Amendment rhino...
Alright, y'all. I'm going to make a phone call to this guy here tomorrow. Alright. He's retiring. However, I'm going to be thanking them to let them know to thank him for retiring, because we do not need him at all in office. The rest of these guys, look up and see if this is y'all state and spread this word to try to get these people out of office, because they are making money off your back. Alright, they're riding your back, and meanwhile, while you're carrying them on your back, they got their little hands in your wallet, and they're taking money from you. Okay?
Republicans managed to vote for a bill that would restrict Second Amendment rights for the average American. Now, we expect the Democrats to do that as they pile on top of the graves of dead people after, quote, mass shootings.
Okay. Just a heads up on my deal, alright? I'm not a Democrat or Republican, alright?
It's a common occurrence for them. I think we have to answer one question. What is the main thing that politicians care about? I guess we can mark off the things we know they don't care about. We know they don't care about me or you. We know that. We know they really don't care about the environment. We know they really don't care about any of the constituents in their area. They don't care about their states. What do they care about? They care about money, and they care about power. That's it. That's it. I think they would sell their own children.
I'm a firm believer at this day and time, y'all. Every single election, we vote for a new person in there. No more of this lifetime appointments of Congress, Senate, or anybody. They get one term. That's it. And that includes the governor. And I don't care if you vote Democrat or Republican, who's ever been challenged and all that, vote for the opposite. Let's get them to wake up and realize you do not have job security whatsoever.
Down the road, just to make a buck and to retain the power that they have. They get infected with this power when they get into D.C., and they can't let go of it because they feel like they have so much, and in many cases...
And for you liberals out there, you may like some of these things that's going on. However, that right there, It's costing you too. Alright? For you Republicans out there, same thing. I've told you guys once, and I'll tell you guys again. They're one and the same in the back door. They'll talk all this nonsense outside. But once they close that door, they're one and the same.
They do have a lot of influence. They have people who hate them pay them money. Think about that. If somebody hates you, but they still reluctantly continue to write you checks because of the influence that you peddle to them, that's pretty strong. That is strong. Have you ever had anybody that you absolutely disgusted and you still gave them money willfully and didn't even receive anything in return? I'm going to show you guys what was smuggled into that Trojan horse bill last month that Joe Biden signed into law. Now, the first stop is to understand what a pharmacy benefit manager is. PBMs are huge.
Okay, I'm going to pause that for a second. It's Congress, the Senate, and Joe Biden. This wasn't just Joe Biden. Alright? This was your senators too. This was your Congress too. And it went through all three of them and got passed. So you guys can say whatever you want about Republicans. Still passed. You guys can say whatever you want to say about Democrats. It's still passed. And it's still costing you.
They're essentially brokers in the pharmaceutical industry, and they do several things. More notably, they bargain with pharmaceutical companies to determine drug prices. Then they decide which drugs are covered by your insurance. They also decide which pharmacies are in and out of your health insurance network. They decide how much you, the pharmacy, and your insurance company are going to pay for a drug. Sounds kind of weird, right? Sounds like the Fox Garden and Hen House, because the drug manufacturers are going to pay the PBM what they call a rebate, which is essentially bribe money. It's a way to say, here, I'm going to give you X amount of money in order for you to peddle my drugs. The drug manufacturers then sell their drugs to the pharmacies. Now, where the PBM gets you...
So, in essence, what they're saying, they are the drug pen. Alright? Everything's going to go through these people. Right there. They're the top dog of the drug industry. They're the ones that are saying, hey, this is how much we're going to make off this and this and this and this.
In this deal, is the PBMs will do what they say is a clawback. It's the difference when the copay is higher than the reimbursement cost of the drug. Now, let's remember that the PBM has negotiated not only that copay, but also the reimbursement cost of the drug. So the PBMs are building in a clawback, which is, again, bribe money that they take back, because they're encouraging the pharmacies and the insurance companies to actually charge the consumer, you and I, more money on the copay, which more than covers the cost of the drug, and they keep the difference. So they're actually making money off of screwing the insuree like you and I. Now, the drug manufacturers are paying good money, again, through these rebates, because what the PBMs do is they create what's called formularies. Formularies are just a fancy word for a list of drugs, a list of approved drugs that insurance plan is going to allow or reimburse for. Because the PBMs are getting money from everybody. They're getting money from the manufacturer, they're getting money from the pharmacy, and they're getting money from the insurance company who's insuring the likes of you and I. So what essentially happens is you get your larger companies, let's say a Pfizer, for instance. Pfizer is huge, right? Let's use Viagra, for instance. They offer the blue pill at a certain rate. The PBM negotiates that rate. Well, the drug manufacturer themselves pay the PBM bribe money to be on that list, to be on that formulary, to say this is what is going to be approved drug under your current plan with your insurer. How come generics aren't thrown into that also, and how come generics aren't suggested more often? The reason why is simply because the generic companies are smaller, have less money, have less bribe money, way less bribe money. They don't have gazillions to throw at these PBMs to bribe them to put them on their list. So in a lot of cases, those generics are left off the list, so you are purposely getting screwed and left out to not have the generic on there. Now, can the pharmacies just suggest a generic? No, they can't. In their contracts with the PBMs, in many cases, they're forbidden from them telling you and I, hey, there is a cheaper alternative, which is the generic. If you ask, and there is one, in many cases, it's cheaper for you to pay full price for that generic drug than to pay with your copay and get it from your insurance company, because the PBM has made it so hard and jacked the price up on that generic to encourage you to get that Pfizer instead of that generic, that in many cases it's cheaper if you just say, I'm not even going to use my insurance, I just want to pay cash for it. And you're going to get it in a lot of cases cheaper than you would with a partial pay on a copay. Essentially, the bottom line is no other industry out there has somebody like a PBM who controls money in and money out. It's paid from 3 different people, a massive conflict of interest the entire way, and the person who gets screwed in all this is the person at the end of it. That's me and you. Do you hear the White House and a lot of people in Congress blame the drug companies, the manufacturers, for being the reason why drug prices are so high? Now, I'm not taking up for the manufacturers at all, but they are not the only reason why, because the PBMs are driving that cost up because you're taking the profit from the pharmaceutical company out of the picture, so they have to somehow or another make it up. So they jack their price up, and meanwhile the PBM is jacking their price up. These two guys work in consortium. They may be enemies, so to speak, on the playing field, but they are equally responsible, the pharmaceutical companies and the PBMs, of rising drug prices. It ain't just one of them. Now, to that point, you guys might remember the argument of insulin costs a few years ago. The president of Eli Lilly and Company claims the cost of discounts and rebates accounted for 75% of the list price of insulin. So they're saying that it ain't the cost of our product. Our product is only 25% of the cost. We're paying so much in rebates that that's 75% of our overall cost. That tells you where a lot of that money's going. It ain't necessarily the manufacturer. Now, I'm almost done here. None of this is illegal. All of this is allowed because Congress makes those laws. Let's remember money's involved, okay? Keep that in the back of your mind. Under the federal anti-kickback statute, you may not knowingly and willfully offer, pay, solicit, or receive anything of value to induce or reward for referrals of federal health care program business. But guess what? PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, do not fall under this rule. It's not like it's flying under the radar, because this is open for debate all the time about how the PBMs are stealing money from people, and they're exempt from this rule to get this bribe money. Congress actually attempted to put a law into place to take away that exemption from these PBMs. But that law being implemented has continuously been pushed back time and time again. In fact, the Biden administration, immediately when they came into office, pushed that back a year. And now, according to the Build Back Broker plan that got pushed into place, I want to say they pushed it back an additional 3 years. So already this law was getting pushed back at least 4 years. Why does that matter? In the law that the Biden administration just signed into law, that Democrat and Republican House members and Democrat and Republican senators also agreed to, and they also agreed to the amendments in the law of this anti-gun bill. Guess what was slipped in there? If you go over to page 21, Title 3, Other Matters, Subtitle A, Extension of Moratorium. This is not going to make much sense, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. Extension of moratorium on implementation of rule relating to eliminating the anti-kickback statute safe harbor protection for prescription drug rebates. Friends, we're at a point where 18 million Americans cannot pay for at least one of their prescription medications. And I imagine that number is going up higher and higher as we fight fuel costs, food costs, inflation, energy costs. The average American is bringing home so much less money. And our politicians saw fit to slide a provision into this bill that had nothing to do with firearms, nothing to do with safety. In fact, did more harm than good, because it means that the Americans are going to be on the hook for this scam for an additional year on top of the years that's already been pushed in. That's what our politicians were thinking about. They weren't thinking about the American public. That's why I say that you guys are not important to them. They were not thinking about how much less money you're taking home. They were not thinking about how hard it is for you to put food on the table, how hard it is for you to go to the store now because you need the fuel at a ridiculous price to go. They weren't thinking about any of this, and they certainly weren't thinking about the 18 million Americans out there who currently can't pay for their current prescriptions. Yet they were giving this safety net, if you will, to these PBMs to continue to jack prices up along with the manufacturers, so that in the next 5 to 6 years, you're going to be paying these huge amount of costs. As the economy continues to do this, the cost of all your prescription medication will continue to do that, because these companies now have federal protection to allow them to extort money and bribe people and jack prices up on these pharmaceuticals for you and I. Remember, we looked at this bill, this anti-gun bill, and all this money that the federal government's going to be paying out to these anti-gun groups to do research, and all these new programs are going to be developing that somehow mental health are going to be doing something, which does nothing to help mental health. It's just putting money in the pockets of people to put new bureaucracies in place. All that money going out there, we scratch our heads, where's it coming from? A lot of it comes from here. The federal government has a vested interest in having this type of system in place where they protect the PBMs. They are part of this system. The federal government themselves collect a portion of rebates under the Medicare program. Again, rebates being the name that we're going to use, but bribe money being the term that is more accurate. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that keeping this rebate, this bribe rule in place, will net the federal government about $180 billion. Now, just so you don't think I'm making a big deal out of nothing, let me show you this. I use a website called Open Secrets. It's a great place. It's supposed to be an unbiased website that shows where money goes, lobbying monies and dollars spent and all that kind of stuff. If I look at money going to Congress just in 2022, now remember, we're only halfway through the year so far. So this is just through June right now. The pharmaceutical industry has already paid the Democrats over $32 million and Republicans over $17 million, and other people $1.5 million. That's more than likely going to Bernie Sanders because he's one of the few independents out there. So these pharmaceutical companies so far have bribed our politicians through only 6 months with over $50 million in 2022. Now, what I wanted to do was expose one of the turncoats that's closer to home to me. I'm not going to be able to do this for every rhino Republican who voted for these anti-gun bills. Bill Cassidy, though, is in my backyard right here in Louisiana. Using the same website, Open Secrets, Bill Cassidy, so far in only 6 months out of the year 2022, has pocketed $11.8 million from various lobbying groups. Now, let's break that list down a little bit to show you who's paying him all the money. If you notice in the industries over here, health professionals have paid him $1.1 million so far this year. That's the largest contributing group that he's had. Now, if you look 4 down from that, oil and gas, that is one of the major, in fact, the major industry in the state of Louisiana where he and I both are from. If you notice, they have only paid half, less than half, of what health professionals have paid this man. So this man has made $1.1 million off of these people. You wonder why he voted for this bill? This man fancies himself as Second Amendment. He has lied every step of the way about this bill, and he has stood behind it. Do you maybe wonder if he knew that this was going to be slid in at the last minute as a Trojan horse amendment? Because let's not forget, between guys out there like Jared and other folks, including myself, we talked about these anti-gun bills that were going to be pushed through. This was never included in it. This was an 11th hour addition to this bill, and it went in like a thief in the night. Nobody talked about it. No one bragged about it. No one said anything negative about it. That means that everybody's in on it except for us.
I'm going to challenge y'all on this. If you're a Democrat, trying to clean house, and, there's always somebody running. So it's time to get the old out, the new in. And then the next voting deal, old out, new in. We need to start circulating these people like little conveyor belts. There is no sense Pelosi should have been in Congress as long as she has. Or any other politician in Congress. No reason whatsoever. They're only in there because of the ignorance of the voters. And I challenge you Republicans, the same thing. There's another Republican out there. Vote for another Republican. They need to be in fear for their jobs, y'all. Period. If we start recirculating these government officials and holding them accountable, they're going to realize, whoa, people are getting a little pissy about this. Just saying. The only way we're going to be able to get back into a reasonable area is circulate the belt. You know, turn that belt on. Every election, somebody new. I don't care if the Senate's every 6 years. So every 6 years, you get a new Senate in there. You know, you got, you know, certain states is Republicans and certain states is Democrats. That's fine and dandy. Replace your Democrat ones. Replace your Republican ones. They get one term. That's it. Congress, one term. We're done with y'all. And that goes including your House of Representatives in your state. One term. We're done with y'all. I challenge you guys on that. Let's get these conveyor belts going and let's start rotating all these people. You know, I realize there's not so many, but every election there is somebody running, and it's time to absolutely pick somebody else. There is no reason why we should be voting for Abbott. We should have another governor. Why? Because he's getting spoiled. He does have good points, but he's still a Federalist. He still believes in the federal government has power that they do not have. He technically needs to take back his state 100 square miles from the border. My ass. Abbott needs to go over there and says, no, you got 5 feet, buddy. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a drive-through. So your border check can just go in that alleyway. No more of this 100-mile crap. I realize it make it a little rougher for the Border Patrol, but how we get our power back with the states? California, half of you not even California. You're a federal government. Quarter of you, Texas, is gone. Mathematically, I don't even think Florida is even a state anymore because that 100 miles inland from the border, you know, you guys got to sit and think about some of these consequences that you guys act like that these government has all these powers. You're technically Corpus Christi literally has no right to vote because the federal government confiscated that area. It is part of the District of Columbia. Just saying, y'all. It's my opinion. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not an attorney. But what if I am right? Even if I'm wrong, what's the worst that happened? We don't have to go through checkpoints 100 miles away from the border? Well, that'd be the end of the world, wouldn't it? Alright. These will be the People News. Bye, y'all.